Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody.
Hillary Clinton wants to abolish it, believe me. She wants to abolish our Second Amendment.
I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Other presidents did not call. They'd write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything.
Many people have come out and said I'm right.
You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Hello and welcome to Fallacious Trump, the podcast where we use the insane ramblings of an ingordigious moorworm to explain logical fallacies. I'm your host, Jim.
And I'm your other host, Mark. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that results in bad or invalid arguments. And the logical fallacy we're looking at this week is the I'm entitled to my opinion fallacy. Can I just congratulate you on the gorgeous phrase, ingordigious moorworm?
Yeah.
Wow. What is ingordigious?
Well, it's a combination of a couple of Susie Dent words, the brilliant linguist from Countdown and online. Ingordigious means motivated primarily by greed.
Nice. Yeah.
It's a 17th century English word. And a moorworm is someone who insists that they have done nothing wrong despite evidence to the contrary.
Wow.
There you go.
Perfect.
Works perfectly for Trump.
Yeah.
So, the I'm entitled to my opinion fallacy, I think is unique as far as we've seen so far, in that the thing people say when they're committing the fallacy is the name of the fallacy.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them have been quotes before.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, essentially, this is when people invoke their right to an opinion in the place of evidence, usually in the face of opposing evidence. So when they've put forward their opinion and their supposed evidence for that being the truth, and then they've been shown it's wrong, then rather than presenting more evidence or arguing against the evidence that they've been shown, they'll just say, well, I'm entitled to my opinion. And it's a kind of thought-terminating cliche, in as much as it's designed to just shut down the discussion. But the thing is, they are technically right in that they're entitled to their opinion in as much as no one can stop you thinking a thing.
Yes.
They can't make you have a different opinion. But typically when people use this, that's not really what they're saying.
No.
What they're kind of saying is, I have the right for my opinion to be given as much respect and weight in an argument as your facts.
I'm entitled for you to respect what it is that I'm saying, despite and give it equal weight.
Yes.
Despite the facts being to the contrary, my opinion weighs as much as your facts.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a Trojan horse phrase.
The idea that all opinions are equally valid is inherently flawed anyway. But the idea that an opinion is equal to facts on the other side is clearly not logical.
There you go.
Interestingly, although I've got several examples from Trump world, and three of them are in defense of Trump, Trump himself doesn't seem to really say this. I haven't been able to find examples of him saying it, at least. And I think the reason is because he doesn't express the things he says as an opinion.
No, he expresses them as facts.
He claims they're facts. He pushes them as facts. And so if you say, well, that fact's wrong, he doesn't say, well, in my opinion, it's different.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you're wrong. My facts are true, even when they're absolutely not true. But some people who are often called upon to defend him are less willing to go that gung-ho about it.
Yeah.
And will fall back on this fallacy.
Yeah.
One of the first ones, I think, probably, was when he was just president-elect, and he was talking about how he would have won the popular vote as well if you count all the illegals that voted for Hillary, if you take them away. And so Mike Pence was on George Stephanopoulos' show and was called to defend that.
I'm asking just about that tweet, which I'm going to say that he said he would have won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally. That statement is false. Why is it responsible to make it?
Well, I think the president-elect just wants to call to attention the fact that that there has been evidence over many years of
That's not what he said.
And expressing that reality, the Pew Research Center found evidence of that 4 years ago.
That's
Is certainly his right. But
it's his right to make false statements.
Well, it's his right to express his opinion as the president-elect of the United States. I think one of the things that's refreshing about our president-elect It's one of the reasons why I think he made such an incredible connection with people all across this country, is because he tells you what's on his mind.
That's very refreshing.
Yes, very refreshing. And also, in doing that, he gives permission for other conspiracy theorists, as we know, to say, yeah, no, he's right. All of this is true. All of these awful things that are disproved by facts, you can prove anything with facts. It's a conspiracy. We are right.
Yeah.
We are able to express this stuff because the president does it.
Yeah. So Pence tries to offer some evidence, in as much as he brings up a Pew Research study from a few years before, that he mentions it a few times during this interview. The first time he says, correctly, that it revealed voters who were incorrectly on the rolls, who had died or moved away or whatever. Yeah. But each time he does it subsequently, he suggests that it is evidence of fraud, which it isn't evidence of fraud at all. It's not evidence that fraud took place. It's evidence that the voter rolls need cleaning. That's all.
Yeah. And
so he tries to kind of bring in evidence, but when that fails, when George Stephanopoulos pushes back on it, he just goes back on, well, it's his opinion. He's got a right to express his opinion. Yeah.
He's got a right to spread falsehoods. Yeah. Well, it's a very refreshing. He's chimed with all sorts of other people that peddle falsehoods.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he got voted in, because they all believed his lies, because they all agree with them.
Yeah. And our second example is also a George Stephanopoulos interview. Every time I hear his name, because he was mentioned on Friends in like season 1 when they got his pizza, the girls got his pizza that was for him, and Rachel didn't know who he was and said, "Who's George Snuffleupagus?" It's all I can think of when I hear his name. Anyway, he was interviewing Trump lawyer Joe Tacopina. This is one of the New York trials where Judge Marchan Trump was saying that he is biased against Trump. Right. And so Stephanopoulos was asking Tacopina if he believes that too.
President Trump has attacked the judge. Is that your team's official legal position? Do you believe the judge is biased?
No, I don't believe the judge is biased. I mean, the president's entitled to his own opinion. Look, he's been the victim of a political persecution.
So, Joe is saying, essentially, I'm as a lawyer in his courtroom, I'm not going to say he's biased. I haven't got any evidence to say that. But the president can say it. That's fine. He's entitled to his opinion.
And he's the subject of a political persecution. That's surely an opinion too. That's not fact.
No, he says, that's a fact. I don't care whether you believe it or not. That's a fact, he says later on in that interview.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Right. Okay. So this kind of the Trumpness is bleeding across his legal team.
So our third example is from Roger Stone's testimony to the House Intelligence Committee in 2017. Now, this was the testimony that he later was prosecuted for lying to Congress about and eventually had to be pardoned by Trump, because otherwise he was going to prison.
Yeah.
And what he lied about was the extent of his connection to Russian sources prior to the 2016 election. So perhaps we could do a bit of a dramatic reading.
Oh, yeah, there you go, yeah.
Do you want to play Adam Schiff or Roger Stone?
I'll be Schiff, yeah.
Okay, go on.
Mr. Stone, you've acknowledged that it's the conclusion of the intelligence community that Guccifer 2 is a cutout of the Russian intelligence agencies.
They have said that, yes.
And you've disputed that. But do you have any basis to dispute that other than the fact that you wish it not to be true?
I just see no proof of it other than the flat statement that it is the case. So I've given you my opinion, yes.
And because the intelligence community hasn't shown you the classified information that would be the basis of their conclusion, you're rejecting it on the basis of the fact that they've gotten other things wrong in the past. Is that your testimony?
Many, many, many other things. And as I say in my statement, I believe they've been politicised, yes.
But your testimony, Mr. Stone, that you were never in contact with a Russian or Russians, let alone the Russian intelligence services, is only truthful if the intelligence community is wrong about its assessment, and you have no basis to conclude that they are wrong about their assessment.
I'm entitled to my opinion. I do not believe that they are, that he is or that entity is a Russian cutout, and therefore I would disagree with you.
Wow. So it just goes, I see no other proof of it.
Yeah.
Other than the flat statement. And I love that he says, that Schiff says, do you have any basis to dispute that? other than the fact that you wish it not to be true.
3 times he comes back to him saying, "You got no reason to believe this, have you?" And all of the evidence is on the other side. And Stone is like, "Well, that's my opinion. I get to have an opinion."
Yeah. And when the speaker says it, they think that's it, and they almost kind of dust their hands together and go, "Right, that's it, job done."
Yeah, I win.
I win, or it's a stalemate, or I've trumped, with a small t, I've trumped your card. Yeah, if that's all you've got, I've got my opinion.
Yeah,
entitled to my opinion. There it is, right there.
Yeah,
jeepers.
And so our 4th example is from Kellyanne Conway.
Yay!
Following day 1 of the press conferences that Sean Spicer held after Trump was inaugurated, in which Spicer lied about almost everything.
Yeah.
And Chuck Todd, weirdly, took Kellyanne Conway to account and asked her probing questions about this stuff and wouldn't let it go. So she responded like this.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts?
Alternative facts
such a great
is really this fallacy, I think.
Yeah.
It's sure you've got the truth on your side.
Yeah.
We've got our version.
Which I am entitled to have.
We can Sean Spicer has his own version of facts. And he can say them. So
wow. Such a brilliant addition to the global lexicon, wasn't it? I'd like to say that I miss both Sean Spicer and Kellyanne Conway, but I don't at all.
I never given them a second thought.
No. And he was the most ill-suited for the role person ever.
Well,
in press secretary.
I mean, just in my head, only comparing him to Trump's other press secretaries and still thinking, actually, no, he was great.
True, yeah.
And now is the time, I think, for Mark's British Politics Corner.
We're going to start off with politic adjacent. And actually, he mentions that he's not interested in politics, but he does seem to wade in on the issues of the day. And it's Gary Lineker, ex-England World Cup star and TV football soccer pundit. And before he was commenting on Suella Braverman's use of language from 1930s Germany and bringing sports coverage to a complete standstill, back in October 2019, he was talking about Brexit under the banner headline, Gary Lineker stuns BBC viewers with patronising claim poor people were duped by Brexit. The right-wing tabloid Daily Express, who also do both of those things, dupe poor people and are patronising, they clipped an interview that he gave on the BBC, which begins with this.
Politics has always been an interest. I don't want to get involved in politics in any way, but it's nice to be able to have a voice of opinion. Obviously, I have a large platform, so I have to think about the degree of responsibility with what I do, so I try and do it in the right way. The Brexit issue has become something that, from the very start, I just couldn't work out why it would be a good idea. Whether I'm right or wrong, time will tell, but I'm entitled to my opinion, and I'm perfectly happy with people that have a difference of opinion, but I'm waiting to hear from one of them something positive, genuinely positive.
So in there, there's kind of an extension of the I'm entitled to my opinion. He talks about graciously allowing other people to have opinions, but there's something in there that smacks a bit of I'm okay with other people's opinions, but they're wrong is kind of in there. And also he says, well, yeah, I was interested in politics, don't want to get involved in politics, but I'd like to have my opinion. So he's doing I can be involved in politics through the fact that I've got an opinion. But he does wade in with lots of opinions, and the strength and rightness of his political position is based on the fact that he's entitled to his opinion.
I think this fallacy becomes a lot messier when you're talking about things that are either genuinely opinion-based, like preference, or kind of ideas of what might happen in the future or might happen given a certain set of circumstances, like Brexit at the time.
Yeah.
Well, no, not at the time, because this was 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think his opinion that Brexit wasn't a good thing by this point had been fairly well proven.
Yeah.
So in a way, I think the most fallacious he's being is engaging with other people's opinions that it is actually great and saying, yeah, they're entitled to their opinions. Because he'd say, like, oh, yeah, other people can have their opinions. I mean, they can, but look at the facts.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So where this is strongest is where people are expressing opinions about things that can be proved, and they're on the wrong side of that.
So I think by extension, the fact that he says he doesn't want to get involved in politics.
Yeah, he does a very bad job of not getting involved in politics.
It's disproven by the facts. But I like to express my opinion. The fact is, he does get involved in politics. That's a lot of what his online presence is about.
I mean, arguably, given his high-profile status as a BBC presenter and football pundit and stuff, he's more involved in politics than a large number of politicians who you never hear anything from ever. Like most of the Lib Dems, unfortunately.
Yes, quite. Yeah.
And a huge number of backbenchers. He's way more politically active, you could argue.
Yeah. But he's kind of denying it.
Yeah.
In a way. Interestingly, the URL of the article at the end is Brexit news, Gary Lineker, Brexiteer, Remainer, BBC latest. So you can kind of tell what the Daily Express thinks of his opinion, i.e. that he should keep it to himself.
Yeah.
And speaking of Suella Braverman, as someone who should keep stuff to themselves, as Home Secretary, she's been calmly acknowledging this week the part that Britain's played in all the wars across the centuries, and accepting those same Britons can, of course, march for peace, whatever side of the issue they stand behind during the current conflicts. No, of course she hasn't. She's been rapidly stirring the culture wars pot in the run-up to the Armistice Day parade in London. And she published an op-ed in the Times, which was unsanctioned by the Prime Minister, accusing the police of biased policing against the right wing and not the peaceful pro-Palestinian marchers. Hate mobs. And thus, in a very Trump-like way, actually incited some sort of violence on the streets. And the government is quite quiet about it, apart from, I actually spotted Rishi Sunak's tell when he said he still had full confidence in the Home Secretary ahead of Monday's cabinet reshuffle.
That offers some hope.
Yeah, he's doing a cabinet reshuffle for rearranging Titanic deck chairs. So whilst the government's been quiet on it, right-wing commentators have not been silent. And so here's a clip from GB News, which is the broadcast arm, as we discovered, of the Tory party, where GB News were heavily represented at the last conference, because most of the presenters are Tory party members, if not elected officials. So this is GB News' Michelle Dewberry's show. And on the show, Alex Dean, who's credited as a PR consultant, he employs the fallacy on Suella's behalf. And Peter Edwards, who's credited as former editor of Labour List, counters the fallacy.
The article she wrote in the Times, where she basically accused the police of playing favourites, treating those on the left when you're protesting very differently to perhaps those on the right.
I think that whilst she may use some terms that people might not use themselves, she's perfectly within her rights to express her opinion. And I think, furthermore, given that the ability to designate something as a protest so risky that it can't take place sits not with her but with the police.
It wasn't a speech, it wasn't an interview, it was her opinion.
I mean, that's a defence put out by her aides, sources telling newspapers it's just her opinion.
Well,
she holds one of the great offices of state, Home Secretary. There's an international crisis in the Middle East, which I think left or right, we're all very saddened and distressed by. But on such a sensitive issue, just to chuck out an article like this, ignore the comments. And it wasn't that they didn't see it. Downing Street saw the article, requested edits, and her team or her, Suella, refused to make them. So it's basically sticking two fingers up at her boss on such a sensitive issue. And my worry is, finally, that it makes it all about her.
That's the other thing that I think this fallacy does, is when you say, I'm entitled to my opinion, the entitled bit is there and opinion is there, but it's also my opinion. And it does make the argument about the person saying, I'm entitled to my opinion. As Peter Edwards points out, it is all about Suella. It's become about her. Her defenders are saying she's got the right to express an opinion. Well, not when you're determining government policy.
Yeah, that's the thing. This becomes much more dangerous and problematic when the people who are expressing the opinion hold positions of power or have some kind of conflict of interest even on a topic. Us expressing an opinion on anything isn't going to make any difference to anyone. But when you're the fucking Home Secretary or the President or someone like that, your opinion isn't just your opinion.
No.
It becomes government policy, even by proxy.
Exactly, yes. And it's absolutely disingenuous for anyone to say, oh, yeah, but and another fallacy we ought to try and look at, because there's so many times it pops up. Grant Shapps, the Defence Secretary, is now saying that the Labour Party are playing politics with the demands that Suella Braverman be held to account for publishing her opinion in the face of directives from Number 10, who said, no, you can't publish that. You need to take these things out that she didn't take out. And I think they said you need to take these out because they're factually incorrect. It's just opinion. You can't be saying that given that you're in the office that you hold. And of course, the fallback after she's entitled to her opinion is you're just playing politics.
Yeah.
We should look at that one, see what that... maybe when we swap roles, might do that one. Yeah.
There might be a new one. I'm not sure that falls into any existing one, so you might have just come up with it.
Labour's Darren Jones was commenting on the fallout of it, and he pointed out that Suella Braverman is entitled to her views, but she should make them privately within the cabinet meeting. And also, retired rugby referee Nigel Owens pointed out, you can't have an opinion when it's totally factually wrong. That then is just a feeble excuse to say something. What she's doing is she's inciting hatred and division and disenfranchising the police. She's done all sorts of stuff. She's trying to blame the judges for being too woke and, for upholding the law, people being deported to Rwanda.
Upholding the law.
Coming around here, and pointing out the legal problems. Yeah, and she does all that stuff, and then to say, "Well, I'm entitled to my opinion," allows you to say outrageous things, seeking to be granted permission to be able to say this shit with no comeback. That's the thing, is when people say that, you're right, it is a thought-terminating cliche, because that's the end of it. And that's, I've entitled to my opinion, and that's the end of it. Whilst it kind of leans into thought-terminating cliche, I think it also contributes to invincible ignorance. There's a brilliant Facebook page called No, Actually, That's Bollocks, which had this example where it spells out the blind faith of Boris supporters. And there was this little video clip, and he kind of written some commentary and said, okay, so basically what's going on is the viewer, Eileen, says, I think Boris has done a marvellous job. Really? In the face of all the evidence presented to you at the select committee hearings? Yes. Well, I'm entitled to my opinion. Well, naturally, you're right, Eileen, you are. But I'd implore you not to ignore the truth when it's laid out in front of you. Yeah, well, I still think Boris has done a marvellous job. So it's a barrier to not to have to engage with the facts on the basis that the other person is arguing with you.
Yeah.
And I've got to get the last word.
Yeah, it's a refusal to accept any argument or fact or anything on the other side. Just, no, you can't change my mind.
Yeah.
This is my opinion. That's it.
Yeah, and I'm entitled to it.
I know it's true, just 'cause it's my opinion, and if you challenge it, I'll tell you I'm entitled to my opinion. Tell me that I'm wrong again, and then we'll know for sure it's just a fallacy in the wild.
Beatles there, of course, with a new #1 hit, Now and Then.
So in the Fallacy of the Wild, we like to talk about the fallacy of the week from a non-political perspective, and our first example this week comes from The Mentalist.
Oh, yeah.
Another medium, or acclaimed medium, has come to them with information about a case.
Right.
And there's some dispute. Obviously, Patrick Jane is sceptical, and the others not so much.
Christina told us she knew in advance that Rosemary was in danger. Why would she tell us that if she's guilty?
How diabolically clever of her. Make us dismiss her as a suspect because she made herself look like one.
Or maybe, just maybe, she has a rare and precious gift and is trying to help us.
A rare and precious gift. Tell me, who gets these gifts anyhow? And how come no one ever has the gift for seeing horse race results? And how come dead people always talk such tedious drivel?
Play nice. That Pelt's entitled to her opinion.
Not if it's wrong. This is like believing in the Easter Bunny. Who says there's no Easter Bunny?
Play nice. She's entitled to her opinion. That's the other thing. Stop arguing with her.
Absolutely, that's the thing. Lisbon is defending Grace in this instance, saying that she's entitled to her opinion. And yes, she is entitled to it, even though it's wrong. But that doesn't mean that you're not open to challenge.
Yeah.
If you express an opinion and someone can offer questions to challenge whether it's right or not, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's not being mean to her.
No. But it's not like she's saying, no, I don't particularly like David Bowie.
Yeah.
You can go, okay, yeah, fine, fair enough. You're entitled to your opinion. Yeah. Rather than, well, you're wrong.
She's expressing the opinion that it is possible that mediums really can talk to the dead. Yeah. And Jane is prepared to push back and has evidence-based questions. But if you don't know the backstory of The Mentalist, Patrick Jane used to scam people. He used to be a stage mentalist, a TV mentalist who would kind of read people's minds and talk to the dead and that kind of stuff. So he knows all of the tricks that people do when they pretend to do that stuff. And that's why he is convinced that doesn't exist in reality, because all of the people who he's ever seen who do that, he knows what tricks they're using. So that's the evidence base that he's coming from in his opinion.
Yes, exactly. So he's coming from a vast body of evidence of the facts of how you do this stuff. Didn't we see one at QED when you just went, oh yeah, no, I've worked out how you've done it?
Well, we did. We saw a magician who did some mind reading type things. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And what you're trying to do is sway the crowd's opinion that you are, in fact, reading minds.
But the way you do that as a stage mentalist is to provide them with evidence that appears to show that that's the power you have.
Yeah.
And it's just that they are not critically thinking about that evidence in the right way, and possibly because it's a trick they're not aware of. It is still providing evidence rather than just saying, hey, I can read minds and that's totally a thing, and that if you don't believe it, that's my opinion and I'm entitled to it.
I'm entitled to my opinion. So I can. Yeah. And all you've got is the evidence. All you've got is the evidence that I can't.
But that doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, second example comes from The Big Bang Theory, an episode where the gang have done something wrong to Sheldon. They've messed with one of his experiments. He got very cross and resigned from his position at the university and moved back to Texas.
What are they doing here?
Well, we came to apologize.
Again?
And bring you home. So why don't you pack up your stuff and we'll head back?
No, this is my home now. Thanks to you, my career is over. And I will spend the rest of my life here in Texas trying to teach evolution to creationists.
You watch your mouth, Shelley. Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Evolution isn't an opinion, it's fact.
And that is your opinion.
I forgive you. Let's go home.
Brilliant. Yeah, there it is. That's the double down.
Absolutely, yeah. Explicitly saying that your facts are just an opinion as equal to my opinion. Equal to my opinion that creationism is real. That's essentially what people are doing with this fallacy, is they are equating the facts with the opinion and saying they have equal weight.
Yeah.
Sheldon's mum just did it explicitly.
Yes, they're not only are they saying that my opinion is equal in weight to your facts, but that your fact is no less of an opinion than my opinion.
Should be treated the same, essentially.
Bringing facts down to the level of opinion, and proud of it.
So our final example comes from 12 Angry Men. which we have discussed a few times. I think, in fact, we've probably looked at this scene before, but this is the very, very end of the film, and this is where Lee J. Cobb is kind of coming to the end of his rope, and he's dealt with all of the arguments. He's the one holdout. He still thinks the kid's guilty, and he's trying to kind of deal with the fact that everyone's presented facts to him that he can't argue against.
Yeah. You lousy bunch of bleeding hearts. You're not going to intimidate me. I'm entitled to my opinion.
And this is almost the last thing he says before breaking down and admitting that he thinks actually the kid isn't guilty. And the reason he's holding out is because he sees in this kid his own son, who has walked away from him and abandoned him, presumably because he's a violent arsehole.
Could be.
And so he resents his kid and his relationship with his kid and regrets not having a relationship. And so he sees this kid in the defendant in his relationship, and he sees him as a kind of wastrel. He holds on to that emotional argument, his feeling that the kid is guilty, his opinion, despite all of the facts that are presented to him and all of the questions that are raised that suggest that at least there's doubt. And all he can do at the end is not argue against those facts, just say, well, I'm entitled to my opinion and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all that's left.
And also there's a stubbornness involved in his character, but in people that say, well, I'm entitled, like Eileen and her belief that Boris was doing a great job. You just dig your heels in and say, well, I'm entitled, I'm going to stick with my opinion in the face of all the contrary evidence. He does break down in order to agree that the facts and the evidence presented to them mean that there is reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
He has to break down. He has to emotionally go through trauma to get past why he's holding on to his opinion.
And I think it's very telling that this is the character who says this, and it's right at the end, because any of the, it starts out 11 people saying the kid's guilty. At any point in the film, any one of those other 11 could have said, well, I'm entitled to my opinion and that's why I'm sticking with what I think. But each of those other 10 were prepared to be argued around by evidence. They had at least partly an open mind, and they weren't sticking with their idea because it was their opinion and that outweighs facts. They listened to the facts.
Yeah.
This is the one guy who wasn't swayed by the facts until he had that breakthrough.
Yeah.
So before we move on to fake news this week, just want to mention that Christmas is coming up. The goose is getting fat, and by goose I mean me. And if you are thinking about what presents you might want to give people for Christmas,
then think no further.
There's a new range of t-shirts on our merch store at fallacioustrump.com/t. In fact, the specific new range is at fallacioustrump.com/shirts. And if you don't have Apple Podcasts, if you use a different podcast app, you might have noticed that since episode 130, I've been using episode-specific thumbnails. Apple Podcasts still shows the show artwork no matter what. But some apps use episode-specific artwork, and it's on our Facebook group with each episode and so on. That artwork is what I'm putting on to T-shirts. So every episode since 130, there's a T-shirt with that fallacy, with a definition and a little image that represents that fallacy. And I've also done some of the kind of classics, Straw Man, Poisoning the Well, and there will be more going up weekly. If you would like a fallacy and there isn't a T-shirt of it yet, let us know and I'll make one for you, just specifically for you.
There you go.
There is a Black Friday/Cyber Monday sale coming up at the end of November. So that's why I wanted to tell you about it now, because you can get 40% off.
Nice. Yeah.
During that weekend, and they're good things to get for Christmas or for yourself. Treat yourself.
Yeah, forget the horrible Christmas jumper. Buy one of these for Christmas, and it's for life, not just for Christmas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm wearing one right now.
My favourite graphic so far is the worst case scenario one with the crocodile, snake, and a bomb. So good.
So fallacioustrump.com/shirts for that range. And if there isn't a fallacy that you like up there, let me know which one you'd want to see.
So we're gonna play
Fake news, folks. I love the game. It's a great game.
I understand the game as well as anybody.
Yes, it's time for Fake News, the game where I read out 3 Trump quotes, 2 of which are real and 1 I made up, and Mark has to figure out which one is fake news.
So I'm just going to state it for the record and say it out loud, and I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking this, that the whole game is rigged against me. basically I demand a recount, as all the numbers to the right of the ratio rightfully are mine. And I'm just voicing my opinion, as is my right. But I think many people agree that this is correct.
Right. Well, Trump did an interview on a Spanish language channel called Univision recently, and a lot of the stuff he said was very, very rambly. It was a fawning interview. They weren't probing questions that he was asked,
Right.
but he went on. His answers rambled significantly and repeated himself and went down rabbit holes and things. So here are just some things that he said during this interview. He was asked initially about why he thinks Hispanic people are intending to vote for him in such huge numbers. He said, "The Latino vote is so incredible because they're unbelievable people. They have incredible skills, incredible energy, and they're very entrepreneurial. All you have to do is look at the owners of Univision. They're unbelievable, entrepreneurial people, and they like me. You know, there's never been anything like it in the Republican Party. I've been a Republican and am a Republican, and we have tremendous support from the, I call Hispanic, Latino. You have lots of different terms, but it all means the same thing as far as I'm concerned."
Okay.
So that's why Hispanics are voting for Trump.
Yeah,
Because of
because
all
they're
that stuff.
incredible, unbelievable entrepreneurial people, and he's a Republican, and he's been a Republican. Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then he was asked about Biden going after him so much.
Yeah.
He said, "They've released the genie out of the box. They've done something that nobody thought would happen. They've taken a president who's very popular. I got 75 million votes, much more than that, I believe. No president's ever gotten that many votes, and they've taken that number of people, and I think you can double it, or almost you can triple it in terms of the feeling. You can't do that. You can't go after people. You know, when you're president and you've done a good job and you're popular, you don't go after them so you can win an election."
What? Oh, okay, he's released the Pandora out of the bottle. Yeah, the genie out of the box, and he's gone for the usual Trump bump. I've got 75 million, much more than that, I believe. No, yeah, and by the next sentence, he's doubled it and tripled it in terms of the real. Then words fail him. Okay, you can't do that. What's he? What is he doing? Yeah,
And
okay. All right, yeah.
Number 3,
Mm-hmm.
he was asked about being indicted 4 times. And he said,
Right.
"What they've done is like a third world country. It's like, I don't want to give any names, but you know the names. That's where this kind of thing happens, in places where, look, what they've really done is they've made this the thing you have to do. If I'm president, and I think I will be, I would be stupid not to do what they're doing right now. If I see someone who's against me and doing well as I'm currently doing, I'm ahead in all the polls, I would have to take them down by indicting them. I would have to."
Right. He isn't ahead in all the polls, is he?
No.
No. Okay. Wow. All right. Okay.
Now, before you make your decision,
yeah,
I just want to say that this is a potential here to get to 50%. If you get this right,
Ooh.
you're on 63 out of 126. So no pressure.
Okay.
But
Okay.
this
Well,
is
yeah.
This is
But
it.
in my opinion, if I don't win, then it's rigged. Okay. Well, I quite like the unbelievable, incredible, unbelievable, entrepreneurial. And I've been a Republican and a Republican. And also the doublet, triplet in terms of the feeling, on the basis that if I don't win, it's all rigged. I think that there's a toss-up between unbelievable, entrepreneurial. There's too many of those, but that could be. I don't know. Okay, I would indict them. Don't give me the names. No, that. Oh, okay. I think number 3 is the one that you made up, but I'm sure it's number 1.
So, would it be fair to say that you're more convinced by number 2?
Yes.
The genie out of the box.
Yes.
And number 2?
Yeah.
Is real.
They've released the genie out of the box. You understand that? They've done something that nobody thought would happen. They've taken a president who was very popular. I got 75 million votes, much more than that, I believe. No president's ever gotten that many votes. And they've taken that number of people, and I think you can double it or almost you can triple it in terms of the feeling. You can't do that. You can't go after people. You know, when you're president and you've done a good job and you're popular, you don't go after them so you can win an election.
So basically you got 75 million more than any other president.
Yeah, but I think it's like wind chill. It feels like 225 million, doesn't it? You know, it's only 75 million, but the feeling
in the shade.
yeah. His opinion is that it's 225 million.
Yeah. It's just what the fact that he puts in. I believe. I got more than that. I believe nobody's got that many votes.
He didn't get that many votes. He got 74 million. He didn't get 75 million.
Yeah. You can't go after people. Oh, basically, it's him. It's him that they're going after him.
They're going after him.
You can't do that when you're that popular. When you're as popular as he's just made up.
Yeah.
You can't go after them because they're only going after him because he's so popular.
Yes.
So what they've got to do is respect his popularity and don't chase him for all the criming that he's done.
Yeah.
In his life.
Because he's so popular and he's done a good job.
Yeah.
In his opinion.
He's done a great. In his opinion, yeah, he believes. Yeah, no, he's done a great job. That's right. Yeah, he's done the best job ever. No other president's done a job as well as he's done it. Yeah, in terms of the feeling.
Yeah.
As far as he's concerned.
Yeah, if you just make up stuff, then you can say any numbers you like, can't you? That's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. In terms of not technically in the real world, but the feeling of how well I've done. I'm going to start doing that at work. Like, how many hours have you done today? Well, I woke up late and I left early, but the feeling. I felt like 8.
Felt like
I'd done
25 hours today. Yeah.
With a little overtime.
Sometimes it's triple that. Yeah. Sometimes in my head I've done 48 hours in a single afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
You also think that number 1 is real?
Yeah, I have my doubts, but yeah.
Last chance to change your mind.
Oh, that's very kind, but no, I'm going to stick with the one I've said. Yeah, you'll have to take your first answer.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Is real.
Well, the Latino vote is so incredible because they're unbelievable people. They have incredible skills, incredible energy. And they're very entrepreneurial. All you have to do is look at the owners of Univision. They're unbelievable entrepreneurial people. And they like me. You know, there's never been anything like it in the Republican Party. I've been a Republican and am a Republican. And we have tremendous support from I call Hispanic, Latino. You have lots of different terms, but it all means the same thing as far as I'm concerned.
What the fuck is he talking about?
You know, there's never been anything like it in the Republican Party because I've been a Republican. I am a Republican and I should know. What the hell? And we have tremendous support from the just random, slightly racist terms. You have lots of different terms.
When he's asked by a Spanish language American TV channel, why do you think Hispanic people are voting for you in such huge numbers or want to vote for you? He's like, well, you know, Hispanics or Latinos, call them whatever you like. It's basically the same.
They're all the same.
They're all one thing. I can't
tell them apart.
Yeah, they're all a monoculture.
Yeah.
And they like me. So,
yeah.
Oh,
what
Jesus
can I say?
Christ. Look at the owners of Univision, such as very non-Latino, non-Hispanic Wade Davis, the CEO of Univision.
Yeah. That's what you got to do.
Very.
They employ a lot of Hispanic people.
Very entrepreneurial.
Very entrepreneurial. He goes incredible. It's just...
There's 3 Incredibles and 2 Unbelievables.
It's just... And then an entrepreneurial, and then he likes the sound of that, and he gets stuck with that, so he has to mash them together.
Yeah, and then he says, "There's never been anything like it in the Republican Party. I've been a Republican and am a Republican." What the fuck?
Yeah. What? Yeah, that's in the Republican Party. Is he just remembered? Is he just, I've been a Republican. Oh, hang on, I am a Republican. Yeah. And we have tremendous support from I call them derogatory terms.
Well, not derogatory, just generic.
Yeah.
Sadly, there is a history of them being interchangeable, including in the US Census in 2010. They just mixed Hispanics and Latinos. Hispanics generally is used to refer to Spanish-speaking people from places where they speak Spanish, including Spain, whereas Latinos typically used to describe people from South America, Latin America, who don't necessarily all speak Spanish, like, for example, Brazilians who speak Portuguese. And that group of people generally doesn't include people from Spain. So, it's just saying, well, they're the same. Doesn't matter.
That'll be fine.
It's all one group.
They all love me. Yeah. Even the Brazilians vote for me. Yeah.
So,
Jesus Christ.
But that does mean that you've won.
Hey!
Number 3 was fake news. He has suggested that he is not that his hands are tied and he's just got to indict people, but he suggested that now that all bets are off, and given the way that he's been treated, anyone who looks at him wrong is getting indicted.
Because he's convinced that it's all either he's convinced or he's just using it as a smoke screen from all the actual criming, which has nothing to do with his presidential achievements. You can see why I'm hesitating to use the phrase, but it's like nothing to do with the fact that he was president. It's all to do with the fact that he's a fraudulent businessman.
Well, and criminal.
And that.
Fraud, insurrection, election interference, retaining classified documents. I mean, I could go on.
No need, because it'll all be in the headlines. But so what he's going to do is get back at people by just doing the same to them.
Revenge is the one thing that motivates him almost as much as greed.
Yes, because he's an
ingordigious moreworm.
Ingordigious, exactly. But yay, flip a heck.
We have got some social contestants on Facebook and Patreon. So if you'd like to join in next time, be on Facebook and Patreon when we record it, even though we don't tell you when we record. And it seems, interestingly, to be split by platform. So on Patreon, a lot of people have got it right.
Oh,
Stephen says, I'm going with number 3. It seems the most coherent, ergo not Trump.
I should use that kind of reasoning.
Well, Anders says, I agree with Stephen, and if I was wrong, we'd have to take you down by indicting you. We would have to. Renee says, number 3 is fake news, I think. I'm fairly certain I've heard 1 and 2, which means I'm listening to Trump way too much. Number 3 is tricky. It sounds so much like Trump's idiocy that it's hard to resist. Well done, Jim. Invisible Unicorn says, I'm going with 3 for the same reason. And Amber says, wait, is 3 coherent?
Nice.
But on Facebook, Mary says, I think this is the first week I have literally no idea. Scott says, this is a tough one. They're all equal parts gibberish. Pretty sure number 3 is real, because he certainly thinks he could, as president, indict people. Number 1 contains a big word that's repeated. He likes to do that. Hence, I think number 2 is fake news. Andrew says, number 2 sounds like a stroke victim, so it's probably true. I'm going with 3. I think he said similar, but that's how you're tricking us. Andrew says, I'm going for number 3, mostly because I want to hear him say they let the genie out of the box. And Ben says, I'm going for number 1 as it's too coherent. So, difference of opinion on which is the coherent one.
Yes. And interesting that people have repeated the word coherent
that's what they're looking out for. Way. I think that's the main thing that people are going by is, does this sound completely unhinged or coherent? I must admit I am struggling, especially in recent weeks, and I think this may be part. I'm not trying to take away anything from your impressive run of victories in any way.
Patronise, mate.
Just to say, I'm struggling to be as batshit as Trump.
Right.
Because he does seem to have got worse. It's hard to come up with.
That's it. They are just completely non sequitur tangents. Yes, exactly. And it's hard to think like that when you're as logical a thinker as you are. but there must be a way of applying the logic to that. Yeah, you've almost got to, write down words and into cutting them lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to,
yeah, I need to get some of those poetry magnet things for the fridge.
Yes, exactly.
And rearrange stuff.
Oh, now there's a merch. There's a merch opportunity. Flipping heck, yeah. You call it the fake news game, and you just put in all of the key Trump words, and you could fridge magnet.
Well, there
fake
is
news.
Our first 40 or so fake news games are on Sporkle as a quiz, so you can kind of test yourself on that. But,
right?
Yeah, because someone on Facebook I think suggested it was a good idea, and I used Sporkle before and thought, yeah, okay, why not? But I haven't updated it at all. So that's it. You are on 50%.
Yay!
63 out of 126.
Oh, right.
It's only taken 5.5 years.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's wow. And yes, because you've been driving yourself mad for 5.5 years.
And it's time for the part of the show that this week, at least, is called "The Trumps Under Oath Are Not a Logical Fallacy," because
it's not even. Yeah, is a legal precedent. Yeah.
Well, they've all no, not at all. They've all been under deposition oath many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is and even Donald has been under oath in this case because he was called to the stand to talk about the statements he was making about the judge's clerk that he claimed were about Michael Cohen.
Yeah.
But Don Jr., Eric, Donald, and Ivanka all gave testimony over the last week and a half.
Yeah.
Donald Jr. was first. This is the New York fraud trial. So they were being asked about the financial statements that the Trump organization prepared and gave to banks and stuff in an attempt to get bigger loans because they were overvaluing their stuff. So Don Jr. said that he relied on accountants, wasn't involved in the preparations of financial statements.
Right.
Although he did sign them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were just rubber stamping stuff at that point. Yeah. But weren't they in charge of the aren't they in charge of the company?
Well,
weren't they in charge of the company?
They were in charge of the company, supposedly, because, Trump wouldn't want any kind of conflict of interest when he was president, obviously.
No, obviously.
So he claimed that he was going to divest all his investments when he was campaigning in 2016. But what he actually did was put just Don and Eric in charge of the Trump organization in a kind of trust. Kept basically everything else. Kept all of his other stuff.
Okay.
Just didn't do anything with it. Basically kind of threatening people to, come and get me. What are you going to do? So Don and Eric supposedly ran the Trump organization from the point at which Trump was elected to, we initially suspected, the point after he left office. But actually, it turns out that he took over control again 5 days before he left office on the 15th of January, I think. Not fully sure why or what impact that has, but it did seem a bit of a weird thing.
Does it coincide with another fraud case or something?
I don't think so. But he did, in July of that year, then step down again and make Don Jr. the trustee for the Trump organization. And that, I think, was because that was when Alan Weisselberg had been indicted for tax fraud.
Right.
So at that point, Trump was like, I think your kids did a great job while I was president. You should look after the company that is mired in these tax fraud questions. I'll just take a step back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
When Trump was asked on the stand, when he testified about why his kids were put in charge, essentially, obviously, it's because it's his kids. But he said of Donald Jr., he said he's a hard-working boy, young man, and he's done a very good job. And then as an afterthought said, as has Eric. And said Eric was very busy running the company, and I thought putting Don in would be good. He's smart. He's a very honourable guy. But they didn't, plead the fifth, at least not in large part. There was some suggestion early on, and I kind of suspected it, that they might all just answer all the questions with, on advice of counsel, I refuse to answer.
Yeah.
But no, they said stuff.
Right.
Some of the stuff they said was lies.
Okay. Okay. Also, most of what they said seemed to be, I can't remember, or I don't recall.
Certainly
I wasn't
Ivanka.
there,
Yeah. Most of what Ivanka said was, I don't recall. Even when she was shown emails or documents proving that she was involved in specific transactions or meetings, or that she had kind of emailed to say, let's do this, or let's have a meeting about this. She was like, I don't remember that.
That's a bit like, I'm entitled to my opinion, in that if you say, I don't remember, it doesn't matter if you remember it or not. It's you're already guilty of what we've said you've done.
Here's the evidence you
facts.
did it.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
saying I don't remember doesn't get you off. It grants you immunity in your own eyes. That's your opinion. Yeah, that you've got off because you just can't remember.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you can remember or not. You just you did do it.
Yeah.
And we've got here are the receipts. We're holding them up and showing it to you. It doesn't matter whether you remember it or not. The fact that's why Facebook, that popular bit in Facebook when it says, here's a memory from 14 years ago or 7 years ago or 4 years or 3 minutes. This is what you did. And you look at it and think, oh, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
But that's nice to be reminded. Because do you have to be minded in order to be reminded? So if you can't remember it, and here are the facts being presented to you, are they really going to go for false memory syndrome claims? I don't know that they're smart enough for that.
Yeah, I mean, they're just. She did say basically she didn't remember stuff. She was asked about the Deutsche Bank loans, where one of the agreements was that in order to kind of qualify for the loan, for the course of the loan, Trump would maintain a net worth above $3 billion.
Bloody hell. Yeah.
And Ivanka suggested that they lower that to $2 billion in an email. She didn't recall that. So she was basically involved. She was that amount of involved in getting the loans from Deutsche Bank, at least.
Yeah.
In terms of she was negotiating the terms. They ended up at 2.5 billion as the net worth.
Bloody hell.
She was also asked about the valuation of her apartment that she leased from Donald in the Park Avenue building, that was valued at $12 million more than she paid for it. So she paid $8.5 million for it, or she had a purchase option. She was leasing it, but she had an option to buy it for $8.5 million. But the value that was on the financial statement that Trump gave to banks to get loans was $20.8 million actually. So that's quite a difference. And she was asked about that, and she said, I wasn't involved in his statement of financial condition. I can't say what it took into account or didn't take into account. So she had no specific recollection that her father had personal statements of financial condition. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So she was. Her testimony was almost entirely, I don't know or I don't remember. Don Jr. and Eric both claimed not to have been involved in stuff, even though they just
had been.
They were running the company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Together.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric, before testifying, said, I'm not, I don't get involved in the financial statements. I pour concrete, which is not, he doesn't do that. Definitely doesn't do that. Not apart from anything else, the Trump organization hasn't built anything in like 15 years. They just invest in stuff.
Or perhaps they pour it round the feet of the people that they're detractors and chuck them in the river. But he said during his testimony, he said that I focus on construction. I don't focus on appraisals. He was shown plenty of emails that showed that wasn't true. That he was doing nothing but evaluations.
Don Jr., as I said, but basically said that he just threw his accountants under the bus. He relied on them. He didn't get involved in the actual kind of financial side of it at all.
Right.
When Trump testified, it was a different tone to his kids.
Yeah, it was just. I like the headline on NBC that's got angry outbursts in the thing, and there's a collector of, because that's the name of the band, a collector of headlines that have the word outbursts in. That's nice. Yeah, angry outbursts. So that was kind of the description of Trump's answering of questions.
Yeah,
I like the fact when even his lawyers. Didn't the judge kind of say, "Can you just rein him in a bit and get him to answer questions?"
Multiple times.
Yeah.
He repeatedly. Unfortunately, this trial isn't televised.
Oh man!
But there were several people live tweeting it. So I was kind of watching the testimony in text form as it was going through, and so many times it was like the judge has asked Trump's lawyers to get him to kind of have some control over him, to try and stop him from answering questions with speeches. He said this isn't a rally. He told him off like answering yes/no questions with a speech, with like rhetoric about how this is all very unfair and he's being railroaded and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Trump shouted at the judge a few times and pointed at Letitia James, the Attorney General, and said she's a fraud. And it's just mad. Wow. It's the kind of thing you would see, I think, if there was a film where someone was trying to get sent to jail. Like they were kind of being hunted by the mob or something, and what they wanted to do was be safe in a jail cell. This is the kind of actions that they would do in a court to guarantee they were definitely going away, preferably into maximum security solitary. This is
brilliant.
But he was completely unhinged, as you would expect. Although when we've seen him do depositions, and they often record those and sometimes they get released, he tends to be quite demure and respectful when he's answering questions in a deposition.
Yeah.
And whenever we've heard people talking about when he appeared for his arraignments and had to speak and was saying kind of yes, no, thank you, etc., he was appearing contrite. He was sitting there and not making a fuss. In this case, which is a bench trial, the judge gets to decide. There isn't a jury that he's playing to.
Right. So
he can't be hoping that there's a couple of MAGA people on the jury who will appreciate this kind of shenanigans.
Yeah.
It's the judge who gets to decide what happens with him and what the result is. And he's just doing everything he can to piss the judge off, to the extent that I've read some people suggesting he's trying to make the judge lose it. He's trying to make the judge so angry that he will say something or do something that will cause a mistrial or cause him to be able to claim on appeal that the judge is clearly biased.
Right.
Because he's acting so crazily that the judge might, if he isn't very, very calm and restrained, which he has been, he's been amazing up to now.
Yeah.
He could say something theoretically that would make an appeals court think, well, that's unprofessional, not the kind of behaviour we expect from a judge.
But that would mean that there was a plot afoot on the part of his legal team, and actually I don't know, because his lawyer, who was it, Chris Keyes, it's kind of it's almost as a Shakespearean aside when Trump is off in the background ranting about something or other, rather than just answering a yes/no question. He just kind of sotto voce to the camera, close up to the camera, just says, "It's best to just let him run on."
Yeah, but that's Kai's. Alina Harbour, who is also on his legal team, has been going the other way and has also been engaging with the judge and kind of arguing back, and to the point that she's been told to sit down and shut up essentially by the judge, because she continually made the same objections over and over again to stuff that was not objectionable and had already been ruled on. And then took the opportunity to come out. And in fact, the legal team have now been gagged as well, because there was a gag order on Trump to stop him from saying negative things about the judge's staff. And so what happened was the legal team just started saying them. And so the judge has extended the gag order to the legal team. And so now Alina Harbour is going on Fox. And when Judge Janine is saying, "Why are you going after the clerk?" she's saying, "I can't tell you, I've been gagged." As if there is something to say, as if there's something to tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's coming out, and whereas Trump was talking out immediately outside the courtroom, kind of inside the courtroom building, talking to reporters and saying how unfair it is and how it's being railroaded, Alina Harbour is holding her little kind of press conferences, things outside the courtroom building, because I think she's slightly less likely to get sanctioned by doing that if she's not actually directly outside the courtroom claiming the judge is biased and against her.
And plus, because she's got an actual job of being a lawyer.
I mean, she's Trump's lawyer, so not really.
Well, yeah, no, it's a bit like Rudy.
Yeah.
But could get professionally barred.
Yeah.
If she, whereas Trump just, he'll just end up in jail. It makes me think of what Bob Woodward reported in the book when we covered it, that his Trump's advisors would say to him, no, you can't appear live in court. You're not going to do that. We're not going to let you do that because you'll just, and they knew that like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Just, no, can't have you stand up there because you will just go off on one.
Yeah.
And make yourself look stupid.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that what I was saying about the judge being very restrained and not doing anything that might potentially be used against him in an appeal.
Yeah.
Is also, I think, the reason why Trump hasn't been held in contempt, because any other defendant would have been held in contempt way earlier.
Yeah.
But obviously this is very contentious and he's the former president and it's definitely going to be appealed. So he is giving him all the leeway. He is, I think I don't know if there's a point that Trump can cross, a line he can cross that would mean he would be held in contempt. But I think the reason he is not doing that is because there is absolutely no way you can look at this trial, at least as it's been reported, as far as I've seen, and say that the judge has treated Trump harshly. He has given him a lot of rope for manoeuvre.
Yeah.
And Trump has used it all and more.
And doesn't know that he's actually hanging himself. Yes.
You don't behave this way in a court. This is not.
No.
This is not behaviour you expect to get away with.
If you want to present yourself as somebody that's not guilty, or worthy of judicial consideration to your advantage, you don't behave like this. Yeah, you're kind of going in and throwing your weight about and shouting and accusing the judge of being biased and shooting down the whole thing as a witch hunt. It's wow. Yeah, it's straight out of, well, Boris was straight out of Trump's playbook, but it's like Boris at the Select Committee calling into question the validity of the court. Which is it's the last bastion of scoundrels. Is it when you finally been caught, you just say, I don't recognise the power of you over me.
Yeah.
You go, that's
it's an old legal tenet that I think we've discussed before. When the law is on your side, argue the law. When the facts are on your side, argue the facts. When neither are on your side, bang on the table. And that's all Trump has, is the banging on the table and shouting and claiming he's being hard done by. He doesn't have any defence.
And finally, some things we really do not have time to talk about.
The beginning of November is the most important time of the year when it comes to American politics, because as we all know, November 7th is Four Seasons Total Landscaping Day. The anniversary of Rudy Giuliani finding out the election was called for Biden while holding a press conference in a parking lot between a crematorium and a sex toy store, because a comedy genius at Four Seasons Total Landscaping did not ask, "Do you think this is the hotel?" when they took a booking for an event. And yes, technically the first week in November is also when they do elections and shit. And they did some this year, so I guess I could talk about that. Democrats won pretty much everywhere. Andy Beshear was re-elected as governor in Kentucky. Virginia Democrats held on to the state Senate and took the House of Delegates. New Jersey Democrats expanded their majority in the state Senate. A Democrat was elected to the open seat on the Philadelphia Supreme Court. And school boards across the country rejected the vast majority of candidates endorsed by Mums for Liberty, choosing instead sane people who were in favour of kids learning stuff. Meanwhile, Ohio so convincingly voted to enshrine abortion access into the state's constitution that Ohio Republicans are already workshopping ways to ignore the majority of the electorate, with State Representative Jennifer Gross claiming it only passed because of foreign election interference, and Representative Beth Lear saying, "No amendment can overturn the God-given rights with which we were born." By which she presumably means the God-given right to force other people to have babies? Not sure. In any case, these idiots seem to be having trouble understanding that taking away reproductive rights is unpopular, which they have in common with, well, all other Republicans. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's convinced that Republicans lost because they're not being extreme enough when they talk about abortion. Or One American News host Jack Posobiec, who ranted in all caps that the childless, unmarried abortion army mobilised by Barbie, Taylor Swift and TikTok are crushing Republicans at the ballot box. And I mean, he's not wrong, exactly.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Barbie, Taylor Swift and TikTok. Fantastic. If brains from Thunderbirds were a real person, AI generative image result, and new Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and his somewhat puritanical faith-obsessed views have come under more scrutiny now he's elected to the Speaker's job. You know, those pesky, niggling and obviously vote-winning, election-denying far-right Christian nationalist views from his time with the anti-LGBTQ organisation Alliance Defending Freedom, through to his claim that school shootings could be blamed on abortion and teaching evolution. Also under scrutiny are his online activities, which he talked about in a conversation on the war on technology at Benton, Louisiana's Cypress Baptist Church, which turned up on X, formerly known as Twitter. I just say that to annoy Elon. Apparently, he runs a piece of software called Covenant Eyes, and I can hear Mrs. Potato Head saying, "and your angry eyes," every time I see that written down, which monitors what you watch and doesn't, prevent it or anything. No, it collates a report and then sends that to your accountability partner, which in Mike's case is his 17-year-old son, for whom Mike is his accountability partner. Yeah, way to go, Mikey. Not only is it a bit weird and big brotherish, but ew, your kid's going to see if you've, well, let's face it, watched porn. And you just know at 17 that's all he's going to be doing. If anything objectionable comes up, your accountability partner gets an immediate notice. I'm proud to tell you, my son has got a clean slate, says Mike. As the ex-user Receipt Maven pointed out, a US congressman is allowing a third-party tech company to scan all of his electronic devices daily and then uploading reports to his son about what he's watching or not watching. Who else is accessing that data? Just say no, Mike. Just say no.
5 people got together in Miami on Wednesday to argue about which one of them gets to lose to Biden if Trump chokes to death on his KFC by next November. Yes, it was the third Republican primary debate last week, and we're down to 5 because Doug Burgum didn't meet the minimum national polling requirement and Mike Pence pulled out of the race and immediately triggered multiple Mandela effects, where half people swear that he pulled out months ago and the other half are shocked he's still alive. The remaining candidates all behaved in their assigned roles, with DeSantis aiming to replicate normal human facial expressions and failing hard. Tim Scott doing basically nothing, although his mythical Canadian girlfriend did make an appearance. Chris Christie attacking Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy attacking everyone and everything, and Nikki Haley having no fucks left to give when Vivek started going after her daughter for having a TikTok account. Haley's response of, "You're just scum," became the biggest takeaway of the evening and simultaneously the truest thing ever said on a stage at a GOP debate.
Excellent. Excellent. You just give up and you go, "Oh, God, you just scum." That's so good. I've dealt with these politicians many times, says Zephan Parker, the bespoke bootmaker behind Houston's popular Parker Boot Company, which he says has made height-increasing cowboy boots for a number of Texan politicians. I've helped them with their lifts. And DeSantis is wearing lifts, there's no doubt. Well, there you have it, folks. Politico reports that Tiny D, who stands at a minuscule 5'11", is worrying about his size and the size of Trump, who at 6'3" also wears lifts to give him that front half of a pantomime centaur look. Apparently, height is perceived to be an advantage over on the right because over the last century or so, taller candidates have tended to have an advantage in general elections, with the notable exception of former President Barack Obama, who is shorter than Mitt Romney, and President Joe Biden, who is shorter than Trump. Traditional Western boots are typically built with an elevated heel, ranging from about 1.5 inches to 1.78 inches. DeSantis' boots have a traditional Western silhouette, but to Parker, the heels appear shorter. When you stick inserts into cowboy boots, the combination of the height-increasing lifts and the heels can, and I quote, turn them into 5-inch stilettos, Parker says. That's too much for the common man. So on a ready-made boot, they'll cut the heel down about 0.5 inch to accommodate the lifts, which looks to be what's happened here, he says. He looks like he's wearing trousers with an 8-inch opening, and he estimates which is plenty of room for a Western boot on a man of his proportions. The fact that the tops push against his trouser legs suggests to Parker that the boots are bigger than intended, probably to accommodate his lifts. DeSantis' campaign deny, of course, the governor doesn't pad his boots, but if he ever needed anything to line a pet cage or fold up and wedge under a table leg, that would be the highest and best use for Politico magazine. Yeah, nice, well-informed comeback, guys, apart from the fact that Politico magazine doesn't appear in print.
I wrote a whole intro here about the rise in hate crimes since 2016, and especially during the past month due to events in Israel, but then I remembered this part supposed to be both informative and funny, and there's nothing funny about hate crimes. Or so I thought. Stay with me here. Until I read about Ruba Almekhteh, an Indiana woman who decided to crash her car into the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge in Indianapolis last week because she's an anti-Semitic arsehole and she thought it was a Jewish school. Fortunately for everyone, Ruba is also an idiot and couldn't be bothered to Google the school before smashing into it and causing $10,000 worth of damage, because if she had, she might have discovered that the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge is an SPLC-designated hate group who are even more anti-Semitic than she is, as well as being anti-LGBTQ and anti-women, so fuck those guys. Now, if we can just get all the hate criminals to only attack each other, I think we could solve the problem.
That's excellent. Brilliant. Jacob Angeli Chainsley, better known as the QAnon shaman, though he prefers to be called these days American shaman, thank you very much, filed paperwork with the Arizona Secretary of State's office on Thursday announcing his intent to run as a libertarian via Natch in Arizona's 8th Congressional District. Chainsley was released into a halfway house this past March after serving 27 months of his 41-month sentence for his part in the January 6th insurrection, and has since been very vocal about the fact that all of his contrition over his actions that day were total bullshit, especially the part where his lawyer made him blame Trump for what he did. He now claims that actually the January 6th insurrection he was literally filmed participating in, shirtless and wearing a large fur hat with horns, was a psyop by the FBI to make Trump and his supporters look bad. Well, of course, none of this phases the world of the QAnonsensers, which at one point was very certain that he was a CIA or FBI plant on a mission to make them all look bad. And now the consensus seems to be that he's part of the plan, or at least he's on the side of the white hats. Okay, I guess given that a Democrat is not going to win that seat, let's just go with choosing the most ridiculous, ill-suited candidate and potential embarrassment for the GOP. Mind you, they don't embarrass easily. And at the very least, enjoy the merch possibilities. Formal or casual available with matching furry tie, no doubt.
James Comer, the idiot chair of the House Oversight Committee, struck idiot gold in his search for evidence of corruption in the Biden family when he found a check to Joe from his brother Jim for $200,000. Clear evidence of shenanigans, which will no doubt lead to a successful impeachment and bring down the Biden administration. All the anti-Biden folk on Twitter are convinced it's the smoking gun and are happy to wave away technicalities like the fact it says on the check that it's a loan repayment and that it was written in March of 2018 when Joe was a private citizen. In their determination to prove malfeasance, they claim there's no evidence that Joe ever loaned Jim that amount of money, conveniently ignoring that CNN found evidence of a bank transfer of $200,000 2 months before into Jim's account from a law firm connected to Joe. Still, say Comer and friends, Biden had shell companies, which is very suspicious, and there's just no way that a payment of that amount between brothers is anything other than some as yet undetermined, highly illegal and nefarious scheme. I mean, imagine if James Comer had a brother with whom he repeatedly exchanged hundreds of thousands of dollars in deals, which are unexplained. That would be crazy. What's that, the Daily Beast? Oh, yes, those deals. Yes, apparently, James Comer's family owns quite a lot of farmland. Back in 2019, his brother Chad bought James's half of a property in Monroe County for $100,000, only for James to buy the whole property back from Chad 5 months later for $218,000. Only this time using a shell company. And in 2015, the brothers swapped properties worth around $175,000 and $203,000, with James gaining about $30,000 from the transaction, but neglecting to disclose that in public records. What's that quote about people in glass houses again?
Yeah, never swap a glass house with your brother. This last week or so in British politics, Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, says living on the streets when you're homeless is a lifestyle choice, as she's trying to crack down on people living on the streets being able to have tents. Also, in her op-ed piece for The Times, she managed to offend pretty much everyone with her spiteful ignorance of the history of the Troubles in Northern Ireland and describing pro-peace Palestinian marches as hate marches, ignoring the facts that both Palestinian and Israel support groups attended the march on Saturday. Basically, she was saying that the people shouldn't march for an armistice because it ruins the meaning of Armistice Day. And then 92 right-wingers are arrested for acts of violence whilst defending the cenotaph from peaceful people who are nowhere near the cenotaph. We wait with bated breath for the cabinet reshuffle on Monday, where we hope Suella will be considering a new lifestyle choice herself. Yeah, just not on my street, all right, Cruella? Oh, and also check your data roaming settings if you're going on holiday outside of your cell phone supplier's boundaries. Since Brexit, for instance, phone companies in the UK no longer have to provide free roaming in Europe and will charge you for it. Morocco is not in the EU, so it's always going to be chargeable if you start using your iPad's data allowance, say like Scottish Health Secretary Michael Matheson, who apparently was using his governmental iPad for work on holiday in Morocco and racked up £11,000 in data roaming charges. Jeez, I thought I'd overdone it a bit when I discovered that you get charged when sailing across the English Channel because it's in international waters, not the UK or the EU. Serves me right for listening to the latest episode of this podcast.
The thing is, arguably, if he was prepared to let the government look at his kind of browser history, he'd probably... Yeah. Like, if that was legitimate stuff, he'd probably be able to claim it as an expense, right?
Yeah.
But he's prepared to just pay the £11,000 rather than let anyone see what he's been doing online.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it's definitely work. Yeah, but at least go in and like, put your data roaming cap on. So, yeah, would you like us to warn you when you get above £35? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, you've got over £35, a couple of thousand times. Yeah. Wow.
So that's all the bad arguments and faulty reasoning we have time for this week. You'll find the show notes at fallaciostrump.com. And if you hear Trump say something stupid and want to ask if it's a fallacy, our contact details are on the contact page.
If you think we've used a fallacy ourselves, let us know. And if you had a good time, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, or simply tell one other person in person about how much they'd like our podcast. And you can support the show at patreon.com/ftrump, just like our strawman level patrons Laura Thompson, Renee Zed, Schmutz, Mark Reicke and Amber R. Buchanan, who told us where we met her at QED. We can just call her Amber, though another listener recognised her at QED this year because we keep using her full name all the time. And our True Scotsman level patrons Melissa Sitek, Stephen Bickle, Janet Uetta, Kaz Tui, Andrew Hauk, and our top patron Lauren. Thank you so much for your contingent support. It's really very much appreciated. Thank you.
You can connect with those awesome people as well as us and other listeners in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/FallaciousTrump.
All music is by The Outbursts and was used with permission. So until next time on Fallacious Trump, we'll leave the last angry outburst to the Donald.
That's right. Go home to mommy. Bye. Bye.